Hey Zach, I'm a huge fan of your YouTube, and I'm brand new to riding fixed gear bikes. I was wondering if you could do a video on chain tension, or maybe answer my question on how much slack should there be on my chain. I'm glad you're liking the videos. Chain tension is super important for fixed riders, so I'll be sure to make a video on it Wednesday. Sometimes when you all message me on Instagram, I like to pretend that we're having some scandalous flirting going on. Cole, thanks for the video suggestion, and here is that video about chain tension and such. Chain tension is super important for fixed riders, because if you have your chain that's too loose, it's a safety issue. If your chain falls off and you're riding fixed, that can be a problem. And if your chain is too tight, it cuts down on the life of your drivetrain, which ain't cheap because you gotta pay for like a chain ring, and a cog, and let's save money because that's fun. Having your chain too tight puts unnecessary stress on your drivetrain. And just like with people, unnecessary stress on your drivetrain can be pretty detrimental. Along with that, if your chain is too tight, it is less efficient. And I know you want to be as efficient as possible, so you could be super fast and hardcore fast. Because of that, I will show you an easy way to tension your drivetrain correctly. You don't need a fancy wooden wedge, you don't need chain tensioners, and heck, I'll even take out the chain tensioners from my bike just to prove that you don't need chain tensioners to correctly tension your chain. So with that, here are the steps to tension your chain correctly. The easy way. Okay, so what you first want to do when tensioning your chain is get some more light because this is too dark and unprofessional. So as a rule of thumb, you're really looking for three main things when you want to tension your chain. First, of course, is the chain tension itself. You want about 1 inch of slack going up and down. 1 inch up, 1 inch down of slack in both directions. This is a rule of thumb that I've used. It's worked for me. And if you want it a little tighter or a little slacker, that's probably fine, probably. I'm an expert. The second thing you want to look for when tensioning your chain correctly is to make sure that your wheel is centered in the frame. And I usually use the chain stays right here as a reference and make sure that it isn't to one side or the other side or whatever. And the last thing you want to keep in mind is make sure that your nuts are tight enough, so your wheel doesn't go slipping when you're mashing or when you're climbing or when you're skidding or doing some fixie shenanigans. So with these three things in mind, let's get on with the how-to video, etc. But before we get to that, I said that I would take out my chain tensioner so you know that I'm not cheating when I'm doing this, because you really don't need these things. And poof, just like that, with some editing magic, I have unscrewed my chain tensioners. If only I could say the same about my life. To tension your chain, you won't really need all that many tools. All you'll need is a wrench that will fit over your track nuts, so you could tighten and untighten them. You could figure out if your wrench is the correct size for your track nuts, usually with a container of mixed nuts. These mixed nuts have some Brazil nuts in them, and usually if your wrench fits a Brazil nut, then it will fit pretty nicely over your track nuts. And so this one fits pretty well, and let's get to tensioning our chain. Step 1 for tensioning your chain is to grab your wrench and loosen your bolts. Self-explanatory step is pretty self-explanatory. So now that you'll see your chain is pretty droopy and that you're not going to be impressing anyone anytime soon with a chain like this, so we're going to need to get some tension to it. To do that, with your chain that draped over your cog and your chain ring, just gently pull on your rear axle and to get some tension to it. After you do that, just tighten the track nuts. You don't need to yank it or anything, just gently. It's your bike, it's not a lonely, frustrated Friday night. So now that we've pulled our axle back in our horizontal dropout, we do have a bit more tension, but it's still probably a bit too droopy to make anyone happy. And we want to make people happy here, so let's get some more tension into it. This lighting totally isn't sketchy. It just so happens that my rear wheel is pretty close to centered when I was just doing it roughly because I'm a boss, but if yours isn't as centered as mine, don't worry about it because we will do the fine-tuning right about now. To start the fine-tuning process, we're going to take our wrench and tighten one, and only one, of the track nuts. We're tightening this one right here. So now that we have this one tightened, that gives us room to move the wheel and the dropout. To add some more tension in the chain, we're going to pull the wheel towards the side with the loose bolt. This will move the axle back in the dropout and give you a bit more tension. Then, after you do that, you can take your wrench and tighten it while you are pulling on the wheel. So that gave us a bit more tension in the chain. We're getting there, we're getting there. And so to get some more tension and to get our wheel a little closer to center. Let's just go to the other side and do the same thing. So we're going to loosen this one. And just going to repeat this process. That's a falling lamp. That's a falling bike. Things are going okay. Things are okay. Ronnie's eating cookies. Things are okay. Okay, now that we're back from that catastrophe, we're going to do the same thing that we did on the drive side on the non-drive side. The drive side bolt is currently tightened, and the non-drive side bolt we just loosened up. So now we can pull the rear wheel towards the non-drive side chainstay to get some more tension in it, and then tighten this up with our wrench, just a little bit. And this will add even more tension in our chain, but it still looks like it's a bit too loose. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're just going to repeat this process of tightening one bolt and then loosening the other bolt and then pulling the wheel towards the loose end. And this will just keep on giving us more tension in the chain. So do that or not. So after going through that process of loosening one side and having the other tighten and pulling the wheel towards the non-tightened side, I've gotten a pretty fair amount of chain tension, about 1 inch of slack up, 1 inch of slack down, and that's about the ballpark where we want to be. And I also got the wheel centered using the chainstays as reference, while also doing the third thing and getting the track nuts sufficiently tightened. I'm not exactly sure how tight that is because I don't have a torque meter or whatever. Just use your common sense and don't gorilla fist it. This isn't rocket surgery. And that's pretty much the easy way to tighten your chain correctly. And there you have it. That's a pretty easy way to get your chain correctly tensioned. And if you like this video and if you're new to this channel, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button if you want fixed gear videos sent straight to your sub box twice a week. And if you want to stay updated on the channel and know exactly when videos are going to be uploaded, please do give me a follow on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to check out my rides, like to the grocery store, because that's exciting, do check me out on Strava. And with that, I will see you in the next video.